The hunger of Willow Creek. The air hung heavy with the scent of pine and decay as Mark Daniels' car rolled into Willow Creek. The small American town huddled against an encroaching forest, its weathered buildings whispering secrets long buried. A faded sign proclaimed population 1,237, but the empty streets told a different story. Mark's fingers tightened on the steering wheel, his journalist's instincts prickling. This was no ordinary assignment. He'd come to investigate a series of inexplicable disappearances that had plagued Willow Creek for months. Official reports cited bear attacks and hiking accidents, but the whispers Mark had chased across 3 states hinted at something far more sinister. As he pulled up to the Willow Inn, the only lodging in town, he couldn't shake the feeling that unseen eyes tracked his every move. The innkeeper, a gaunt woman with eyes like chipped flint, handed him a key with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Room 13, she rasped. "Last one on the left. Mind the stairs, they creak something fierce." Mark nodded, his gaze drawn to a faded photograph on the wall. It showed Willow Creek in better days, bustling with life. "Quite a change from back then," he remarked. The woman's face clouded. "Aye, the forest takes what it wants, always has." Her words lingered as Mark climbed the groaning staircase. His room was Spartan but clean, with a view of the town square. From his window, he watched shadows lengthen as dusk crept in, painting the streets in hues of blood and gold. That night, sleep eluded him. The forest pressed against the town, its darkness absolute. Somewhere in the distance, a lone owl hooted, its call echoing unnaturally. Then, a sound that made Mark's blood run cold, a whisper, faint but distinct, seeping through the walls. "Leave, while you still can." He bolted upright, heart pounding. The room was empty, the door locked. Just imagination, he told himself. But the whisper lingered in his mind like a stain. Morning brought little relief. The diner across the street served coffee strong enough to strip paint and pancakes that sat like lead in his stomach. The locals eyed him warily, their conversations hushing as he approached. Only one, an old man with a face like crumpled parchment, offered a nod. "You the reporter?" he wheezed, sliding into the booth opposite Mark. "Journalist," Mark corrected. "Mark Daniels. I'm looking into the recent disappearances." The old man's laugh was a dry rattle. "Disappearances. That's what they're calling it now. Son, people been vanishing in Willow Creek since before I was born. It's the witch's curse." "Witch's curse?" Mark leaned forward, recorder discreetly activated. "Aye. Old Mabel Thorne, they called her. Lived out in the woods back in the 1800s. Townfolk accused her of hexing their crops, stealing their children. Burned her at the stake, right there in the square." He pointed a gnarled finger towards the window. "But as the flames took her, she cursed the town, said her spirit would return, hungry for vengeance." Mark suppressed a smile. Small-town folklore was his bread and butter. "And you think this curse is behind the recent events?" The old man's eyes narrowed. "Laugh if you want, but something's stirring in those woods, something dark, and it's getting stronger." As the day wore on, Mark's skepticism wavered. The sheriff, a burly man with a permanent scowl, stonewalled his inquiries. The local librarian, a mousy woman who jumped at shadows, claimed all records predating 1900 had been lost in the fire, and everywhere he went, he felt eyes upon him. It was on his 3rd day that things took a turn. While exploring the outskirts of town, Mark stumbled upon a clearing deep in the forest. At its center stood a gnarled oak, its bark blackened as if by fire. Scratched into the trunk was a symbol, a crude eye encircled by runes. As he reached out to touch it, a child's laughter echoed through the trees, chilling in its innocence. That night, the whispers returned, louder this time. "Come to the woods," they beckoned. "See the truth." Against his better judgment, Mark found himself drawn to the forest. Moonlight filtered through the canopy, casting eldritch shadows. The air grew thick, oppressive. Then he saw it, a figure cloaked in darkness, hovering at the edge of the clearing. "Who's there?" Mark called, his voice trembling. The figure turned, and Mark's breath caught. Its face was a void, an abyss that threatened to swallow him whole. From within that darkness, a voice slithered forth. "You should have left, scribbler. Now, you too shall feed the hunger." Mark ran, branches clawing at his face, roots snagging his feet. Behind him, the entity pursued, its presence a palpable weight. He burst into town, gasping, only to find the streets deserted. Windows were shuttered, doors bolted. Willow Creek had become a ghost town overnight. Panic rising, Mark pounded on the inn's door. "Let me in, please." The door creaked open, revealing the innkeeper, but something was wrong. Her eyes, once flinty, now glowed with an unholy light. "Too late," she hissed, her voice a chorus of whispers. "The feast begins." Mark stumbled back as the innkeeper's form contorted, shadows pouring from her mouth like smoke. All around, similar transformations unfolded. Townspeople emerged from their homes, their bodies twisting, merging with the darkness. The entity was consuming them, one by one. Desperate, Mark raced to the town square. There, beneath the ancient oak that had replaced the burned stake, he saw it, a book, bound in what looked disturbingly like human skin. The symbol from the forest adorned its cover. With trembling hands, Mark opened the book. Pages of arcane script swam before his eyes, but one passage stood out. To banish the hunger, speak the witch's true name thrice, and offer a sacrifice of blood. The entity loomed closer, its tendrils reaching for him. Mark's mind raced. The witch's true name. He remembered the old man's tale, Mabel Thorne, but was that her true name? As the shadows closed in, Mark made his choice. "Mabel Thorne!" he shouted. "Mabel Thorne! Mabel Thorne!" The entity paused, a low growl emanating from its core. Then, with a shriek that shattered windows, it recoiled. But it wasn't enough. The book demanded a sacrifice. Mark looked at his hands, then at the encroaching darkness. With grim resolve, he drew his pocket knife and sliced his palm. Blood welled, dripping onto the book's pages. The effect was immediate. The entity writhed, its form destabilizing. The possessed townspeople collapsed, their bodies their own once more. With a final, ear-splitting wail, the darkness imploded, leaving only silence in its wake. Dawn broke over Willow Creek, finding Mark slumped against the oak, the book clutched to his chest. The townspeople stirred, confused but unharmed. They had no memory of the night's horrors, only a lingering sense of unease. As Mark prepared to leave, the old man from the diner approached. "You did it, son. You broke the curse." Mark shook his head. "I don't know what I did. That book, it wasn't just a story, was it?" The old man smiled sadly. "Some truths are best left buried. But you've earned the right to know. Mabel Thorne wasn't the witch's name, it was her accuser's. The true witch was the town itself, its fear and hatred given form." Mark's blood ran cold. "Then what did I banish?" "A manifestation," the old man replied. "But the root remains. Evil like that doesn't die, it just sleeps. And one day, it'll wake again." As Mark drove out of Willow Creek, the forest seemed to watch him go. In his rearview mirror, the town looked peaceful, normal, but he knew better. The darkness was still there, waiting. And somewhere, in another small town, another journalist might be chasing whispers, unaware of the hunger that lurked just beyond the light. Mark's hands tightened on the wheel. His work was far from over. The story of Willow Creek would be told, a warning to those who would listen. For in the heart of America, in the shadows of forgotten places, the old evil still stirred, hungry for the unwary.